G'day and welcome to another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups. On this episode, yes, I have had a shave. It did get a bit out of control and now my wife loves me once again. So we have the front subframe out of a Mk2 Cooper S. A customer's bought to me and wants me to build for him. So we're going to be going through everything here. Everything's going to be fully adjustable. So we're going to have high-lows in it. We're also going to have adjustable camber caster and toe adjustments along with new brakes and new brake lines. So the first part we're going to be installing is going to be what we call the tie bars. Now the tie bars is what attaches the vehicle to the stub axle itself. This is also going to give us our caster adjustment. So it's going to enable the wheel to move back and forth within the wheel arch. So we're going to open these up, we're going to install the bushes and then do the lower control arm. Grab yourself a razor blade, cut it open. Now these aren't coated at all to either side. It doesn't matter if you go left or right or vice versa. Now what you want to be doing is when you install these, you want to make sure that you get a wheel alignment afterwards. What I like to do is set both sides up exactly the same. If you assemble the entire suspension at the front like this, for instance, and you tighten everything up, once you then put in the car, the engine's in the car, and then you go for a drive, all the suspension components are going to change angle in the geometry because of the extra load on the vehicle. If you go for a drive around the block and everything seems fine, you might only last a couple of 100 kilometers before you need to start replacing more bushes. The reason for this is once you then put load on the vehicle, you can then find that the bushes haven't found their natural home where they want to sit, and then it's caused them to tear and wear prematurely. So here's Tomo's handy tip of the day. Whenever you do any suspension components and the vehicle is raised off the ground so there's no load on there, make sure that you tighten everything up and then loosen it off 1.5 to 2 turns, go for a drive around the block, do 2 or 3 kilometers, put it back up and then retension everything. But only retension it when the vehicle is on a loaded surface. So when it is sitting on the ground, if you have access to a 4-post hoist, retension everything on the hoist. If you don't, then take it to a mechanic or jack it up in such a way that keeps load on all the suspension components. So these are the bushes that we're going to be using as well. There's 2 different types. There's a purple type and a black type. Now, once again, there are a set of instructions which, as I said in my previous video, we want to make sure that we're reading, and you want to properly be reading these because if you install them incorrectly, it's going to wear prematurely and it's going to give you an uncomfortable ride. Now, like I said, there's 2 different color bushes. There's a purple one and there's a black one. So as per the instructions that come with the polyurethane bushes, you want to be using the stiffer bush on the outside. So it's going to be going on this side of the subframe. The softer one, if that'll just stay there, no it won't. The softer bush, which is the black rubber one, that'll go on the inside. So it will mount something like this on the arm. So the arm will have the black one first, it'll slide all the way on. We'll then put the purple one on the outside, followed by another washer, and then we can tighten it up. That's the correct orientation you want to have it. If you have 2 stiff bushes on here, you're going to find it's going to be a very uncomfortable ride, and as per the instructions, it's not highly recommended. Now, part of this kit, you can also buy a tie bar bush kit. So it comes with new springs, bolts, and washers. So you can use everything in this kit to assemble the front end of the suspension. So in the kit, there's 2 different types of washers. There's a completely flat washer, and there's also a concave washer like that as well. If you've done any suspension work before, you will likely find that you've seen these before. So with the little nipple on the inside of the bush, this little bit here, that's going to be facing inwards. So both of the bushes are going to face each other. This is the locating ring. So it's going to sit inside here and it's going to locate itself. Now on the back side of the arm, we don't need to apply any washers simply because it already has a flat surface here. So that's completely fine. On the outside, for instance, we are going to be using the bush followed by the concave washer. So it's going to be facing the nipple on the inside, and then we're going to be putting the flat washer on the outside. So let's get to work and start to install it. So we grab our soft rubber bush first, slide it down onto the tie bar. We are then going to install it up through here. Then we're going to get our polyurethane bush, that'll just slide straight in there. Make sure that the nipple is facing inwards. We are then going to get our concave washer, and that's going to go straight on there like that. And then we're going to get our flat washer to go on the outside, followed by a new nut from the supplied kit. Now there are 2 different size nuts. We want to be using the larger nut, and we're just going to be tightening that by hand. Once we've put it in the vehicle and we've gone for a drive around the block, we'll then retension everything. But for now, we're just going to do it up by hand until the rest of the suspension components are in, and then we'll nip it up a bit more, then loosen it off again. Before we go any further, we're going to be adjusting this nut so we loosen it off to make the adjustments easier down the track. So we're going to grab a 5/16 spanner, we're going to loosen that. You should just be able to put it on there, hold it, and just give it a twist, and then it's going to become loose. So all we're going to be doing is loosening this off here. Now, the most ideal way to go about adjusting these is to measure the length and then compare it to the standard length that you've got, and then adjust them to suit. And then once you get on the wheel liner, they can then adjust it to suit the vehicle and the setup that you have. Remember that caster is going to work by moving the wheel in the wheel arch further forward or further back, depending how you want the vehicle to set up. Once you've made the adjustment on one side, you're then going to repeat it on the other side. Now, another part of the kit that you get is a couple of these bolts and a couple of nuts as well. Now, what this is going to do is enable the tie bar to be attached to the lower control arm, which is the next part of the installation. Now, this is our lower control arm. This is what attaches the wheel to the vehicle. So in my previous episode, I had a guy ask me, what does an upper control arm actually do? Not only does it attach the wheel to the vehicle, but enables the suspension to work in motion. So you're probably wondering, well, why do you have an upper and a lower control arm? If you only had one control arm, the wheel's going to mount here, for instance, and as soon as it gets load on it, the wheel's going to fall straight down. It's not going to be able to support itself. So by having two arms parallel, top and bottom, they're able to move in unison with each other and enable the suspension to work correctly. So this is what's going to give us our camber angles. So if we loosen this lock nut here, for instance, and we turn this out, it's going to give us a higher negative, meaning if you started at 0, you go into -1, -2, -3 camber. If we wind this in, it's going to give us a higher positive, meaning 0, 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. It's all good to have a car that has fully adjustable suspension, but set it up to suit the application that you're using it for. So what we're going to be doing is grabbing our lower control arm bushes next. Now these are offset bushes, meaning that the distance from the center line to the top is different from the center line to the bottom. So what we're going to be doing is looking at the yellow dot on these. Now, these come in two different types. You can buy them with a white dot or a yellow dot. If you use it with the yellow dot, it's used for fast road or competition. If you're using it with a white dot, you're using it solely for race applications. That'll just be the stiffness of the material. Going back to what I said before, you want to ensure that you make sure the parts that you're putting in your vehicle suit the application. You don't want to be driving around on something that has solid engine mounts, the stiffest bushes ever, and it'd be super uncomfortable if you're driving it every single day, especially on long distances. If you're into that sort of thing, then so be it. But personally for me, because I drive my car on a not so regular basis, I don't need to have that sort of comfort to be able to worry about that. I'll put up with it because I'm not doing a lot of kilometers. So we're going to grab our bush. I'm going to face one at the 12 o'clock position, straight in through there, and then the other dot I'm going to place at the 6 o'clock position. Once it's in there, it's done. Now this pin is what attaches the lower control arm to the subframe itself. As you can see at the end here, it is circular, but it also has a notch cut out at the top. The reason for this is this needs to be lined up with the notch cut out at the top of the subframe. If it doesn't, then the arm's going to spin, and because the drive shaft runs directly over here, if this is out 180 degrees or any other degree, it's going to not work the way that it's designed to. So you want to ensure that when this goes in, it lines up with the tab, and that way you can ensure that it's been done correctly, and it also tightens up to the right specification. So all we're going to do is get our arm and the pin, we're going to line that up, we're going to push it all the way through, make sure that the pin goes all the way through the center line of the bushes, and then once it goes all the way through, you can then send it home and push it all the way, making sure that you line up the top tab with the pin as well. now that the nut's done up completely tight, we can then make sure that there's a bit of movement there, which there is, and then we can loosen off the nut half the turn and then readjust it after we've gone for a drive. Make sure also, and I can't stress this enough, that the cutout is in line with the flat notch on the subframe. Now you're probably wondering how the tie bar attaches to the lower control arm. This little cutout here, along with these bolt holes here, line straight up. So all we're going to do is adjust the tie bar to suit, and then we're going to line up the two holes and then put a bolt through it with a new nut. Now, when you go to put these in the car, you will find that if you put the bolt in the wrong way, the hub is going to sit directly here along with the drive shaft and the CV boot. If you want to make this a serviceable item, you want to ensure that you put the bolt in from the bottom. If you put it in from the top and you need to take the arm out for whatever reason, you need to replace it, you need to adjust it, you will need to take out the drive shaft itself because you won't be able to get the bolt out. Because the bolt needs to come out so far, it hits on the drive shaft quite soon. So another handy tip, put the bolt in from the bottom, put the nut on the top. That way, if you have to service it, you can still remove the bolt without having to remove the entire drive shaft. Once one side is done, proceed to the next. Now that the arm is secure, we're going to tighten up the nut. So grab yourself a 9/16 spanner, hold it on the tie bar there, get yourself a ratchet, tighten up the top. So we're going to wait till it comes to a complete stop, and then we're going to back it off one full turn. So now that it's firm, we can't go any further without crushing it too much. We're going to back it off one turn. And then we're going to leave it until we put in the vehicle. We're going to turn this nut as well. That way it comes to a complete stop, and we're just going to nip that with a spanner. Now you don't want to be over tight in these because when you go to get a wheel alignment, if it's too tight, the wheel line is going to hate you. Once you're done on one side, repeat the same process on the other side. Alright, so now that the front lower control arms along with the tie bars with new bushes are fitted, on the next episode we're going to be installing the front upper control arms along with high-low adjustable suspension, new rubber cones and bump stops. So I'll see you then guys.